Number 12.
Everyone loves themselves a good rivalry.
Take two characters who basically just can't stand each other, toss them into the same pot, add a bit of drama to the mix, stir it all up, and you've got yourselves quite a spicy stew.
But of course, while it's all good and fun to watch a pair of rivals bicker and squabble,
I think we can all agree that the best part of any rivalry is when the two can, if only temporarily, put aside their differences of who has the mightier power level and focus their usual animosity towards a mutual foe.
A prime example of rivals turned allies is our choice for fight number 12, Roka and Anna versus the cultists of Atrophy.
now, this is a bit of a switch-up compared to our previous fights.
Compared to Shiloh and the Saru, instead of just facing one baddie, our dynamic duo are facing what's basically a whole bunch of mooks. As a result, the flow of this fight is definitely a good bit different.
Before we start diving into the nitty-gritty, however, let's open with a bit of context.
The chapter begins with our crew living out the true millennial experience.
Dead broke.
Lucky for our heroes, fortune decides to favor them with something of a golden opportunity. Under the orders of a mysterious client by the name of Vlad, the crew is tasked with visiting Atrophy Isle.
Lovely name, as always.
Once they arrive, they're to find and retrieve a treasure, of which they're promised a pretty hefty cut. With little recourse, the crew takes up the offer, though not without some bickering, and plot a course to Atrophy.
Upon arriving, the crew stumbles across a village full of wholesome, good-natured folks who will in no way stab them in the back.
Spoiler alert, they actually do.
During this, we're introduced to a few new characters, including the stars of this fight, Roka and Anna.
Roka is basically what would happen if you combined Gordon Ramsay and Indiana Jones into a single person. She's an incredibly skilled cook who travels the world in hopes of finding all manner of new delicacies. This curiosity has resulted in both her and her adoptive sister, Millie, becoming stranded on Atrophy.
Up next is Anna, a skilled huntress from the Heartland Isles. She is a sure shot with a bow and has spent quite a bit of time hunting down all sorts of beasties. There's one in particular that she's been hunting down for a while now, the Moby Dick to her Captain Ahab, if you will. The trail of that beastie has led her to Atrophy as well.
The two have known each other for quite some time now, having developed quite the rivalry back when they first met on Heartland Isles.
And, being stranded on Atrophy has done little to dull that tension between them.
Anyways, our two frenemies and the rest of our heroes are roped up by the totally trustworthy villagers into undergoing a number of special trials. Completing these trials will help the so-called Lord of the Island.
And while the warm fuzzies brought about by saving a mysterious, possibly evil entity is no doubt a reward in itself, the trial goers are also promised countless riches if they finish everything.
Pretty sweet deal, right?
Long story short, things quickly go wrong. The Lord of the Island turns out to be kind of a massive jerk. The friendly villagers are actually cultists, and several members of Team Not a Religious Nutcase are captured. A rescue mission is mounted, which leads to fight number 12 on page number 47.
Like we mentioned before, this fight has a lot of moving pieces to it.
Anna starts the battle with a surprise opening barrage. She lets loose what's basically an entire storm of arrows onto the battlefield before literally swinging into the midst of things. She ends up stumbling into the chieftain and his own cultist buddies.
Kotanai and Roka join in as well, so it doesn't take long for things to devolve into absolute chaos. Of the two, Roka is the first to charge into battle, bumping into the Soothsayer and her small army.
The two get right to work, both dealing with their current enemies quite handily.
At the same time, quantity begins to trump quality, and Anna finds herself slowly overwhelmed. She's eventually pinned to the ground. But oh, what's this?
From out of the blue comes a chain, smacking aside the cultists and allowing Anna her freedom. Despite all their bickering, Roka has nonetheless come to her aid. However, Anna, not wanting to be outdone, repays her debt by saving Roka from an attack by the Soothsayer.
I feel like this scene is what really helped put this fight on our radar initially. While everything beforehand was really well done, there's just something special about seeing the two show off their supposed lack of synergy.
And that's not the end of it either.
After managing to take care of the chieftain and one of his strongest mooks, a massive bull bestial, Anna leaves both the old man and the remainder of his minions in the hand of another, before rushing off to go help her frenemy.
By the time she arrives, the Soothsayer's forces have already been wiped out by a very, very cranky Roka, With nobody left to rely on, said cultist is left all on her lonesome to face off against the dynamic duo.
To her credit, instead of outright panicking or fleeing like a normal person would, she instead decides to toss a few barbs right back in their direction.
Honestly, this part is actually pretty great. The banter between the three really helps add a bit of levity to what's otherwise a pretty crazy battle. And not to mention, I love how even with their teamwork, Roka and Anna still have the time to throw insults at one another.
When words fail to break bones, the soothsayer changes strategies and throws a half-dozen knives instead.
Luckily, Roka and Anna manage to either dodge or knock the relentless assault right out of the air before taking the offensive themselves.
Through a good bit of ingenuity, Roka uses her chains to box in the soothsayer, making it all too easy for Anna's arrows to strike true.
And while the soothsayer does try to rush Anna down before she can let loose a shot, the cultist proves to be a bit too slow. She takes an arrow to the stomach, and her frenzied follow-up is dodged as well.
Roka is given the honor of finishing her off, and with the soothsayer's death, the battle is for all intents basically finished.
With the threat defeated and the rescue operation as a whole coming to an end, the two proceed to go off and beat up a defenseless old man. The end.
Now, why did this fight make our top 15?
I think the biggest reason is the chemistry between Roka and Anna. From the very beginning, we've seen that these two have something of a vitriolic relationship. They don't despise each other, but there's obviously a good bit of tension.
Having the two of them throw aside their differences to do battle against a common foe is super fun.
The writing for them does a really good job at cementing this. Plus, both roleplayers actually pay attention to each other's posts, and play off them effectively. All of this helps makes the events of the fight itself all the more effective, even cathartic.
Plus, this is the official debut battle for Roka, and the first real time we see Anna dealing more damage than she takes. This fight does a great job establishing these two as worthy combatants.
And I know we've said before, but it bears repeating, the constant trading of insults and general banter is a delight to listen to.
Now, why wasn't this fight any higher? I'd say that the main culprit is that as a whole, this fight really isn't all that earth-shaking. While Roka and Anna both are excellent, the same can't really be said for their foes.
While I'm sure that Cultist B, or whatever his name is, has lived a long and fulfilling life, he and his friends are still just basic mooks in the end.
And while the Soothsayer and Chieftain are somewhat better, there still really isn't all that much to them. They feel less like characters and more like obstacles.
Finally, the sheer power discrepancy makes it so we never really get the feeling that our two rivals are in any real danger of losing.
As a result of all the above, we unfortunately couldn't really place the fight any higher.
But all the same, if this fight is anything to go off of, I think we have a lot to look forward to from Roka and Anna.